Pep Talk UK. It's time!
Oi, oi, welcome to the Pep Talk UK Sports Podcast, the podcast that talks the major football and boxing news from around the globe, real points of view from a real panel. Hashtag Real Talk on Pep Talk. I'm your host today, Frankie B, and I'm joined by a special panel. Firstly, from the beautiful capital of France, Paris, Pascal, how are ya?
Pascal est toujours là. Frankie B, comment ça va?
I'm okay. Is that the right answer?
Bien sûr, yes, of course. You know, it's the right thing to say in English. But yeah, everything's been very, very well. You know, Frankie, I've just been, enjoying the autumn season in Paris. You know, the leaves are beginning to fall down on the floor, and it's very romantic. You know, it's very good place to be at the moment.
Right, brilliant. And also joining us tonight, we've got a man who's been on before from the Seven Wolves platform, Terry. How are you, geezer?
I'm good, thanks. I mean, you guys replaced me with the White Rhino last week, but the real White Rhino is back, and I'm really glad to be back. Remember, at the Seven Wolves, follow, get involved.
And Pascal, you also got some social media handles as well. Do you want to shout them out?
Oh, yes, of course. You know, I'm on Twitter and I'm also on Instagram, and it's Pascal _sad. So it's actually I should say it in English, sorry. It's PASCAL _DE_SADE.
Brilliant. And also I'm going to shout out mine because I'm new to social media. Mine's on Twitter is at Pep Talk Boy. And on Insta, it is pro_bees. That's BEEZ. Right, Terry. Ow! Now it's time for some real. We're going to have some real talk on Pep Talk. As ever, we start with the boxing results. At York Hall, last weekend, Goodwin Promotions put on a hell of a card entitled Fright Night, encapsulating the theme of Halloween weekend. Our very own Pep Talk UK sponsored Linus Yadofia managed to claim a 4th round stoppage. Also on this card was a massive bout between K Prosper and Raheem Noble for the Southern Area Light Welterweight title. It was very entertaining, but Raheem Noble managed to retain his title with a great performance. Now, Pascal, you flew over from Paris to see a very entertaining fight between Raheem and Kay. And also you got to see Linus with an impressive 4th round stoppage.
Very, very much so. Yes, it was actually very exciting. We also got to be part of the, the entrance, with, Linus and the rest of his entourage, which was very good. Very much impressed with Linus. You know, he's spent quite a lot of time in training camp, leading up to the fight, and he fought a very durable, Bulgarian, fighter, but, it was very apparent that after the second round, Linus understood very much the rhythm, got into his own rhythm, and knew that these punches were hurting his opponent. The Bulgarian fighter tried he tried as best as he could to push Linus back. I think when you are getting beaten up, your pride takes over, and he was doing very much all he could to push Linus back. But, after the 3rd round, I knew that Linus would get him on the 4th round, because he was beginning to tire, and also his opponent showed signs of pain. The punches were very, very, meaningful with bad intentions. Linus was working the body very well, and on the 4th round, the referee did the right thing, and by stopping the fight, which was very exciting and very happy for Linus because that's his 3rd professional bout, and Linus deserved the knockout performance.
And what about K Prosper versus Raheem Noble? Brilliant fight.
This fight was superb, absolutely superb. You know, both very well-conditioned athletes. You know, I remember Rakim Noble when he fought Sohail Hamed. You know, I was there that night actually, and I saw a very, very entertaining fight. Probably in my eyes was the fight of the year. You know, absolutely cracking fight, and Rakim Noble won that title there and then. And I remembered him very well. You know, after such a very good performance, and I must say he's improved terribly, you know, since that particular fight. You know, he seemed to be going from strength to strength, and he showed relentless approach, relentless attack on K Prosper from the moment the bell rang. You know, he didn't let K Prosper time to settle. Rakim Noble was at the center of the ring, and he was bringing the attack after attack. The engine on Rakim is unbelievable. He could have carried on 20 rounds at that pace. I was very surprised, but I was also very impressed. And I must say, I've grown, you know, to become quite an admiring, you know, a fan of Rakim Noble, because his tenacity, his relentlessness is very something to admire. And so big shout out to Rakim. And also K Prosper, you know, very brave performance. I learned later on that he broke his hand on the third round, and he carried on fighting up till the 10th round, you know, so you got to give credit to K Prosper. You know, he's a man's man. You know, he could have quit, he could have told his corner not to come out, but he carried on. He had his friends and family around, and, you know, we expected a very, very interesting fight between the two. You know, some people call it a 50-50 fight. Others had K Prosper, you know, as a potential winner, but K Prosper, you know, showed very good technical ability in the first couple of rounds, but soon after the third round, when his hand broke, you know, you realize that K wasn't the same boxer, and something was bothering him. And it was very interesting to know that the injury was a reason for that. But I've got no doubt that K Prosper will come back. You know, he's a good fighter. He's got very good skills. Got a very good camp. He was very well trained, you know, during the time leading up to the fight, and we expect K Prosper to bounce back from it, and hopefully, you know, the two shall meet again in a ring for another cracking, sequel.
Hopefully there'll be a rematch in the future.
Let's hope so.
Terry, did you hear about this contest, or did you manage to go to York Hall?
I managed to see. Couldn't make it to York Hall. As I said, a leaving dude. But I managed to catch some of the fights via Facebook Live. Ryan Walker put a very good stream up, so thanks to Ryan Walker. What I found interesting, I'll probably summarize. I think Pascal's covered it well. But what I like was seeing a lot more combination punches doing well again. So if you go back just a couple of years, it was all the long arms, the jab, and the straight right hand, and, you know, dancing around a bit. But now you're seeing guys like, if you see, you know, how Linus got stuck in.
Yeah, engaging.
A lot of good combinations, and a lot of body work as well. I think it's the same thing with Rakim Noble. There's a lot of combinations and body work. And also, how big is Rakim Noble at the weight? Like, the guy's an absolute giant.
He was certainly impressive. As Pascal said, he could have done another 10 rounds. He was absolutely relentless. I think everyone was shocked at ringside with the fitness of the man. Brilliant. Great performance by Rakim. Now to the mainstream boxing news. The big news is Anthony Joshua is going to fight Eric Molina, and Dillian White is going to fight Derek Chisora. Now, Pascal, Joshua versus Molina. Is this light work for AJ? Can AJ fight with one hand behind his back?
You know, I think that this fight with Molina is not going to be, you know, a straight walk in the park. You know, I mean, you know, for some reason I was a bit disappointed by that fight, because, you know, a lot of us were anticipating the Klitschko fight, but, you know, we've covered in the podcast before that in Matchroom we try to make the fight as exciting as possible by, you know, engaging in huge marketing promotion. So, but we anticipate the fight perhaps next year in the spring, which will be an absolute blockbuster of a fight. This, in my opinion, is a tune-up fight for Anthony Joshua, and an opportunity for him to end the year, you know, with another winning streak. The problem with that is that Molina comes, you know, from Poland. having defeated, Adamek, if I'm not mistaken. And, Molina has some form of confidence, having knocked out an opponent, away from home. So he'll be coming into England, with some hope, knowing that he could potentially try to upset Anthony Joshua, though it's unlikely. Molina is quite a mobile fighter, and he's got some good decent skills in him. He's been in the ring with Deontay Wilder, Chris Arreola, he's lost to them both, but he's got some ring experience, and AJ is still yet to fight Arreola and still yet to fight Deontay Wilder, so we'll get to see how good AJ is. I expect AJ to win the fight, of course, but I don't think it'll be a straightforward fight. I think that I can anticipate perhaps 5-6 rounds, before AJ gets to break down Molina. That's my opinion. I think that Molina will prove to be a bit more competitive, but I still expect AJ to win.
Well, we'll see what happens. Terry, now, are you excited about this matchup between Joshua and Molina? Do you think it's a case of saving AJ?
If we could play Joshua's career backwards, it wouldn't look too bad. Going from Molina to Brazil to Martin and winning the belt. That would actually be quite a nice flow. It's almost like he's won the belt and he's taking fewer and fewer risks. So, everyone's talking about there's meant to be a Klitschko fight. But my question is, who was he going to fight before Tyson Fury went into meltdown? Because there must have been a plan before that, right? And so if we go back and say they had no intention of ever matching him against a meaningful opponent. The Klitschko thing was a smokescreen. We all knew that fight wasn't going to happen. It was too soon. The venue was too small, and there wasn't enough build-up to turn it into the fight it has to be. Vladimir, and I'm sure this came out in the negotiations, said, if I'm going to pass the torch to Joshua, I need to be well paid for it because, I lose a lot in taking a defeat like that.
Of course, yeah.
So that fight will take a while. So then you stop and you go, who could Joshua really have fought? And, the problem was the WBO sorted out its dance partners, Andy Ruiz and Parker, were going to fight for that belt. David Haye fights the winner. So you've taken 3 meaningful fighters out of the equation. Pulev asked for too much money. He fell out of the equation. Duhaupas is fighting Takam. So that's taking more guys out. And then Eddie Hearn basically gave Malik Scott, who would have been Josh's opponent, you would think, gave him to Luis Ortiz, thinking he was going to get Klitschko. and then, Stavern and Povetkin are sewn up. Now you're essentially looking at guys like Shannon Briggs and Lucas Brown. So Eddie was on a hiding to nothing by that point. And it's more or less, it's his own fault because he should really be planning for Joshua's next 3 fights and getting those negotiations started now. As a fan, don't buy this on pay-per-view. That's what I say to you. Do not buy this fight on pay-per-view. It is not a pay-per-view fight. I don't care who they stack the undercard with. This is not a pay-per-view fight. And if you buy it, don't complain about it. Well, for me, it's bad for boxing. It's bad for business because there were enough names, As soon as the Klitschko fight fell through, Eddie Hearn could have rung David Haye and said, just like he did with Kell Brook, I've got a contract here. If you sign it, it's yours. And David would have taken that.
Well, that story I'm sure is going to run and run. Now, you're talking about the undercard, Terry. Now, Terry, how much security will Eddie Hearn need for Dillian Whyte versus Chisora? It's getting a bit heated in the build-up, isn't it?
I have a feeling we'll see a more statesman-like Chisora. I don't think you'll see the hothead of old. He might try the odd kissing of the lips thing that he likes to do.
Yeah.
He'll do something to Dillian to offset him, but I think Dillian will be the guy really trying to get under his skin. But Derek's not really a guy where you can get under his skin like that. I've met Derek briefly. The weird thing about Derek is, despite his public persona, he's a really quiet guy. Doesn't like to talk much, That would be quite happy surrounded by his own company. But, once the pressure to build up a fight kicks in, other Derek turns up. But it's a high risk fight, actually. I think this is a high risk fight for Dillian. So I can imagine Dillian will be extra hyped because Chisora's tough and Chisora's a 12-round fighter. He's experienced in that. This isn't Ian Lewison. That's no disrespect to Ian. But this isn't Ian Lewison. This is Derek Chisora, who has two hands that can deliver pain. So Dillian will be in for a fight, but we're seeing in Dillian an evolution. So he's using the jab more often. I still don't think that left shoulder's right, so I don't think he's going to be throwing those left hooks. And if Derek's smart enough to keep circling to his right and working that left hook to the body, he might get an easy win.
Wow, it's going to be very, very interesting. I think it's a bit close to call, if you ask me. The rankings suggest that they're neck and neck. Now, Pascal, do you think Chisora's experience in the big fights is going to give him the edge in this contest?
Frankie B is a very good question. Chisora has been with Vitaly Klitschko, one of the better, heavyweight boxers in the history of the sport, if I can dare to say so. And he managed to go there 12 rounds with him, and David Haye went 12 rounds with Vladimir Klitschko and didn't perform as well as Derek Chisora did against Vitaly. So, to some extent, Chisora has got quite a good experience fighting abroad. He lost to Kubrat Pulev recently, but managed to win against Traza and Jananin. So I think, for Dillian Whyte, it's a very, very risky fight. I agree with Terry very much so, because Dillian Whyte, his recent fight against Ian Lewinson was, all credit and respect to Lewinson, but took the fight, in 5 weeks notice, and he was carrying, a few more pounds that he would have liked. But, I saw the fight and, Dillian looked quite composed. Delivered some very good body shots and uppercut, and it seems that he seems the kind of boxer that's taking his career more seriously, because there's an opportunity for some strange reason for the winner to be WBC eliminator. So, which I was quite surprised at. So there's an opportunity for the winner to go on and potentially face Deontay Wilder, So it's a very important fight for both fighters. And I think Dillian Whyte, is steadily, for me, Lewinson certainly with a very good amateur record. Unfortunately, his body weight didn't allow him to perform as well in Glasgow. But against Chisora, it's going to be a very different fight. Chisora can fight. Chisora can, very, very powerful boxer, and as Terry said, can bang with both hands. And I expect Chisora to inflict some difficulties with Dillian Whyte. I don't think Dillian will find it very, very easy. It all depends on the kind of Derek Chisora we get on the night. If this is the kind of Derek Chisora that takes his training seriously, that doesn't, cut corners and that trains hard, Dillian will be in for a very difficult ride. But if it's a Derek Chisora that just turning up for the paycheck and it doesn't quite matter for him whether he's got another chance at it, then it's going to be an interesting fight, and I can see Dillian Whyte winning. But there were claims that during the younger days at sparring, Dillian Whyte put Chisora down. These are those speculation, and we don't really know for sure. But I think Dillian should be taking this fight seriously, because Chisora is a slightly more experienced fighter out of the two.
So Terry, we need to call a winner. Who are you picking, Chisora or are you picking Dillian Whyte?
I'm going to pick Dillian, because I get a hard time whenever I pick it. He gives me a hard time if I pick against him. I am going to pick Dillian for 2 reasons. One, the improvement he's made under Mark Tibbs.
Yeah,
he's come on in leaps and bounds. Yeah. And 2, he's got the machine behind him now. So you imagine they've seen something in Chisora they can exploit. Otherwise, they would never take him to fight.
So, Pascal, predictions. Chisora or Dillian the body snatcher Whyte?
Our prediction is that Chisora is very durable, but he wasn't able to dethrone Pulev for the European Heavyweight Championship. I expect Dillian Whyte to give him a good fight, but Dillian Whyte to win by a split decision, in my opinion.
Wowee. Now, this weekend, Pac-Man, he's back and he fights Jesse Vargas. Terry, is this a fight too far for Pacquiao, like Sylvester Stallone in Rocky 6? Is Pacquiao washed up?
Washed up is relative. If you can avoid the endangerment in the division, you're never really washed up, are you? That's the problem. So he's managed to avoid the endangerment. So this isn't a fight against an Errol Spence or a Keith Thurman or even a Danny Garcia. This is Jesse Vargas, who is still famous for no other reason than for hitting Tim Bradley once in the last round. and also for literally blowing his chance with Mayweather. You know, that's essentially who Jesse Vargas is. Somehow he's ended up as WBO champion. Don't understand how, but that's boxing for you. Against Pacquiao, he'll get the same treatment Tim Bradley got. I expect him to hit the canvas a couple of times, and it might even get stopped early.
Wow. Pascal, do you think we're underestimating Jesse Vargas?
Absolutely not. You know, Jesse Vargas, I mean, Jesse Vargas fought a very good overhand right. You know, and he has decent, body shots on him, and he's a taller fighter, obviously. He's a taller fighter between him and Pacquiao, but I'm not convinced about Jesse Vargas with its ability to retire Manny Pacquiao. You know, Manny Pacquiao is still very much a very special fighter, who throws very awkward shots at very awkward angles. Vargas has not faced anybody like Pacquiao before, and Timothy Bradley fight, if there was some instances where Bradley, I think it was in the very last round, as Terry said, Bradley looked as though he was going to go down and managed to stay on the ropes, and as a result of that, Vargas, became the WBO champion, but by default, because, let's face it, Pacquiao had lost the belt to Floyd Mayweather beforehand. Floyd relinquished the belt, and there was a scrap for it, and it just so happens that whoever's there and good enough to pick up the belt won the belt. But that's the belt that belongs to Manny Pacquiao. It's the belt that most people are familiar with Manny Pacquiao, and I expect Manny Pacquiao to beat Vargas. Vargas will probably get knocked out in round 6, round 7, in my opinion. And certainly not a pay-per-view fight to watch. I would recommend all of our viewers to just wait the next day and download it by stream or something.
Are we saying it's a crick free thing? Is that what you're saying?
In my opinion, it's definitely crick free. There's better things to do, like getting some sleep and waking up in the morning and watching the fight.
Yeah, or a bit of Pro Evo, the new one, or FIFA.
Exactly.
So Terry, speaking of Pacquiao, what I find is extremely amusing is he keeps saying that he thought he won the fight between him and Mayweather.
Look, you take punches to the face for a living. You need a degree of delusion just to function in that area. It's not a rational career these guys have. So I'm not surprised he keeps saying it. He probably believes it. But facts are facts. In fact, I've always maintained Mayweather didn't knock him out because he expected to give him a rematch and make even more money. But Pacquiao just couldn't crack the Mayweather code enough that the rematch would be viable. There were 2 instances. I think it was round 8 in that fight, and round 11, where Mayweather hits Pacquiao with his right hands and Pacquiao's going, and 2 left hooks would have probably put him down. But Mayweather kept him up and went, no, I'll take a step back because I might need you for more money. But Pacquiao handled it all wrong. I think he should have taken his beating like a man, but he didn't. And now Floyd's like, I'm not going to give you that payday. You disrespected the rules of the game. But in terms of Pacquiao, the guy will go down in history because you can't disrespect his record. His CV in the ring is above question. Now, his 66 or 67 fights, beyond question. And then you look at Vargas and you go, really, who's Vargas beaten? He beat Antonio DeMarco maybe 5 years ago. Great. And DeMarco isn't even a gatekeeper, to be honest with you, at 140. He beat Saddam Ali, and Saddam Ali was overhyped anyway. The guy had no power, and Vargas hit him with a right hand, and that's pretty much the end of the guy. But he hasn't done anything. He's managed to steal a belt. And, this will be the fight where he gets to legitimize it, because let's remember, he ran away from Kell Brook. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see, certainly. Now, we keep forgetting to mention the rematch between Frampton and Santa Cruz. It's totally gone under our radar. Now, Terry, just staying with you, how do you think Santa Cruz will approach the rematch this time?
Doesn't matter what he does, he's losing. He's losing. I've been relatively close to the McGuigan camp for the last few weeks, so I've been excited by where they want to take Frampton and what Frampton's actually capable of. I think the issue was with Santa Cruz. He thought, you could just be the busy guy throw loads of punches, but Frampton moves laterally really well. So if you notice in the first fight, Santa Cruz will punch wherever his eyes lock in on. That's how he doesn't care where the opponent is. Wherever his eyes are, he'll throw punches. So when Frampton moves to the side, you'd see Santa Cruz missing a lot of these punches. And when people say, why did he lose? He lost because he has no accuracy. He has no accuracy in his game. And Frampton's the worst person to be inaccurate against, because he'll exploit you. You know, look what he did to Scott Quigg's jaw. You know, Santa Cruz might get that as well. I don't expect him to win. I expect Frampton to win, and this to solidify Frampton as the best British boxer right now.
Yeah. Well, Frampton is certainly talented. Pascal, what does Frampton possess in his arsenal to take out Santa Cruz in the rematch?
Carl Frampton, I enjoy watching him. He's a very, very good Irish fighter. And he fights with the passion of an Irishman. And he genuinely believes in his roots, in his Irish roots, and he fights with that fervor. And I expect Carl Frampton to go out again and to perform again for himself, for the people of Belfast, and for the people of Northern Ireland. Santa Cruz, I've never really been excited by Santa Cruz. He comes from the very much, the typical Mexican come forward kind of school of boxing. But, Frampton is a technically gifted fighter, and he's got very good tutelage by from the McGuigan camp, and I expect Frampton to convincingly, show that he's a better fighter than Santa Cruz, and Santa Cruz will have to take a different route to become a world champion, and perhaps maybe consider other opponents at different weight division if Carl Frampton doesn't decide to unite it in the first instance. I think for me, the interesting fights out there for Frampton are potentially the Nolito Donaire fight. That will be an exciting fight because Donaire, is scheduled to fight also this weekend, on the undercard of Manny Pacquiao, and it'll be very interesting to see how well Donaire performs, because it'll be good to have Donaire and Frampton together in a ring. Donaire before he fought Ray Gondau, was tipped to do great things. Then he was recently also fought and beaten by the Jamaican American, I believe, Walters, who fights Lomachenko. So, his career has been derailed a little bit by two defeats from two very good fighters, notably, and Donaire just wants to get himself back into the big time, and Carl Frampton will give him a good opportunity. Al Heyman is also supporting Carl Frampton and showcasing him very well over, to the States. You can export Frampton very well because of the big Irish population in America. So it'll be good to have Frampton fight across the pond against, other notable opponents. But I expect Frampton to maintain his unblemished record for some time, as long as they can avoid Guillermo Rigondao. Rigondao for me is one of my favorite boxers at the moment. And I can expect Rigondao to punish pretty much anybody in that lightweight division. But the exciting fight would be Rigondao against Lomachenko at some point. If that fight can be made, that would be an excellent fight. But keeping in the subject of Frampton, I think Frampton, will wipe the floor of Santa Cruz the second time.
Well, time will tell. Now it's interview time. Our boxing correspondent Shaz Chowdhury managed to catch up with a world-renowned boxing coach, Adam Booth, at York Hall, who gave us a quick update on what he has coming up in the near future.
Pep Talk UK are honoured to be joined by boxing Booth, Adam Booth himself. How you doing, Adam?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm always well. Better for seeing you here today. Adam, you've had probably one of the best stables in the UK. You've got a lot of young, exciting fighters under your belt. Who are you training at the moment?
We've got Mitchell Smith, Ryan Burnett, Lucian Reed, Andy Lee, and then there's Abraham Horner as well.
Now, Abraham Horner recently had a fight. He went 6 rounds. He looked very good in there. You've got some good prospects as well. I saw you the other day with Mitchell Smith at Harrow. So they're getting good fights under them. What's sparring like between the lads?
With the sparring with Ryan Burnett, Mitchell Smith and Lucien Reed is better than a lot of fights.
I think a lot of promoters will like the sound of that. They'll probably start trying to sell tickets for the fighters.
Maybe people should start filming doing live feeds from gyms and selling the sparring sessions for 20p each or something. There'll be a lot of people to watch it.
Lucien Reed, are you hopeful to have him back out in December? I know he's just joined.
By the end of this year. The plan is to have him out by the end of this year and then to get him active and get some momentum behind his career next year.
I had a chat with Lucien Reed and he said he's just joined you. You're very technical with what you do. Are there any secrets special to Adam Booth, what he does with his fighters?
No. It's like anyone, you just do what you think's right. You don't sort of analyse yourself. If you think something's right, you do it. If you don't, you don't. And then, obviously, over time, it shows out whether you do it the right way or not.
Well, you've got a very exciting stable. We at Pep Talk UK are going to be watching you closely and hoping it develops, and we wish you and your team the best of luck.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Shaz also managed to catch up with the exciting boxing prospect signed to Goodwin Promotions, Brad Pauls.
Pep Talk UK are joined by a bit of a heartthrob, a boxing sensation, Mr. Brad Pauls. How are you doing, Brad?
Very good, thank you. Thanks for having me on your show.
Brad, now, I've seen you fight. I've seen you train because you're at Club KO. You're under the apprenticeship of Terry Stewart. What's it like training with someone like Terry?
It's not easy. Terry is the torturer, as they call him, and he's a great guy, real nice guy. I couldn't ask for a better coach, and he works us hard, and I couldn't ask for anyone better, to be honest. So I'm happy.
In your last fight, there was some travelling involved. You were in, was it Torquay? The last fight, Newquay. Where was the last fight?
It was in Torquay in the Riviera. I took Terry on holiday, took him down to sunny old Devon, and yeah, it was good to mix it up from your call, and it proved a good idea because I had over 150 of my Cornish support made it, so I was extremely happy.
Now you had a bit of a name that you were fighting. You were fighting Dan Blackwell with Nick Blackwell in his corner. How was that as an experience to fight a name such as Dan Blackwell?
It was good, and it was something that I think I needed, the perfect time for me. So all my other opponents, anything that I threw at them, they've fallen over and couldn't take it. Dan Blackwell took it with a smile and a cheeky comment as well. So he was happy to be in there, and that was my 60th fight, including my amateurs, and that is the most fun I've ever had in a boxing match. Was against Dan Blackwell.
Now, some of your opponents won't say they've had fun with you because you're a bit of a KO specialist as well, aren't you?
Yeah, first 3 all inside the 2 rounds. And any time that I found my range and landed my shots, then they were going over. But Dan Blackwell was a different story, and I got a good 4 rounds out. And I probably learned more in my last fight than I did in my first 3. So that's what it's about.
Now, one of our sponsored athletes, Linus, is in the same gym as us. We've got Kay Prosper in there. We've got the Robinson brothers. I've seen you boys have little spar-ups, go for 2 hours at a time. Does that help you progress, do you feel, with all that intense sparring?
100%. In our gym, we're all at similar levels. Maybe Kay's leading the way a little bit, but apart from that, we're all at a similar level, and everything is competitive. There's no one leading the way by far, so any spars that we have, if you're not on point and you're not thinking, you're getting it round the face, and you have to be on your best all the time when you're sparring people like Linus and Sean and Luke. It's tough sparring in our gym, but it brings you on.
For the future, if I could press fast forward, where do you want to be in a year's time?
Year's time, I want to have some sort of title fight, whether it's the Southern area or whatever opportunity presents itself. But as long as I keep winning and I keep building myself, I'm here for the long run, and I'm expecting to go to the top, so as long as I'm getting close to that.
Well, and one other thing, for people that haven't seen you fight, you come in with a bit of a gladiator mask as well. What was the inspiration for that? I
think normal's boring. I think you get one shot at this in your life. This is your thing you've worked so hard for, and then why do it the same as every other person's done it? Yeah, you want a little chance to be different, and you get your little 20 seconds ring walk to be a little bit different. So I remember seeing Michael Katsides do it, and I just like the way it looks, because if you think about it, boxers are modern day gladiators. And I think the shoe fits, and it's a bit it's a bit of a good look. I'm quite happy about it.
Now, this is also a football podcast. Do you watch football? Do you support a team?
I support a team, but I can't say I'm a massive follower of football.
Who do you support?
Liverpool.
I'm a Leeds boy. We're playing you in a couple of weeks in the Cup, and we're going to smash you. You might be able to smash me in the ring, but at football, we're going to smash you.
Now, this is fight talk. I doubt you'll win.
Just for the listeners out there, what are your Twitter handles, your Insta handles, so that they can give you a follow? Because we're watching you.
Athlete page on Facebook is Brad Pauls /professional boxer. Instagram is just Brad Pauls, and Snapchat is just Brad Pauls as well.
Well, Brad, joking aside, you're an exciting fighter. You're one to watch, and Pep Talk UK will be watching you, and hopefully you have a fantastic career. But we'll be with you every step of the way.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all the support. Onwards and upwards.
Lovely. Cheers, Brad.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaz. Now it's football time with the Champions League, guys. The big game of this Champions League round was Barcelona against Man City, which ended up in a Man City 3-1 victory. Pascal, how do you think Man City perform? Are they finally coming to the fore in terms of the Champions League?
Well, first and foremost, the newspapers and the media are really, praising Pep Guardiola for beating Barcelona. But let's not forget that, Barcelona have lost before to British opposition, to English opposition. They've lost to Celtic, remember? They lost to Celtic. They also lost to Arsenal. They also lost to Chelsea. So it's not the first time that Barcelona has lost, So, credit to Manchester City, of course, because they needed to get that boogeyman off their shoulders, and it was important for them to win at home, to show that there's an opportunity for them to reclaim some points at home. But at the same time, Pep Guardiola displayed his tactical, ability, in understanding and unlocking the Barcelona defense. Barcelona's defense, interestingly, seems to be quite poor, seems to be quite weak. Whilst they have a very, very good offensive team, their midfield also is very, very good, but the defense has always been quite questionable, and Pep Guardiola exploited that very well during that game on Tuesday. And the results, to some extent, given the firepower of Manchester City and the balance of the team, was to be expected. It wasn't quite I didn't certainly expect the same defeat that Manchester City had at the Nou Camp to happen at the Etihad Stadium. So credit to Manchester City for winning the game, but it is not necessarily a proof that Manchester City will go on and win the Champions League. It's a very good domestic victory for them. It will give them some confidence, and certainly proof that Pep Guardiola still has that technical understanding and the way to break down Barcelona. He did that very well on Tuesday night.
Terry, now Man City have spent loads and loads of money. We keep harping on about it. Do they finally, this time, make a serious attempt towards winning the Champions League? Is this the year? Finally.
Man City fans are the new Chelsea fans, man. You remember the days you used to feel sorry for Man City? When United were winning everything, you just felt sorry for City
when
fans.
Arsenal used to just smack them up and stuff. Arsenal used to smack them up regular.
Exactly. And there were noble fans, and there were always nice people. You could have a drink with them. And then they got the money, and all of a sudden, man, that Abu Dhabi money has driven them crazy. And they get hyped because they beat Barcelona 3-1. It's a freak result. If they're playing the game now, they get beaten again. So, City fans, buy the DVD for your mates, by all means. I know you guys want to celebrate that. But they'll have to do this. Like, look, Guardiola's 10 weeks into English football. I want to see the City team after they've been through Christmas, players injured, people tired and broken. The FA Cup takes it out of your legs as well. Let me see what they do in the knockout stages. If he can mastermind a significant win over someone like a Real Madrid or Bayern Munich, then yeah. But remember, this is Pep Guardiola, so we have to hold him to a higher standard than everyone else for the hype that we attach to. So right now, I'm like, you should be beating Barcelona, man. You created the code.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, that's a good point. He put together the team, so he knows how to dismantle them. Top point. Good point. Now, unfortunately, Mike H is not going to be happy with this. Spurs lost again. Pascal, the Wembley curse strikes once more.
Well, Frankie B, I'm actually quite fortunate because, Spurs fans particularly, were going on about how they were going to be better than Arsenal and it was going to be a change of power in the London football scene. But, the European Cup games, particularly the Champions League, it's a very difficult competition. And, we got to give credit to the likes of Arsene Wenger, who's managed to get Arsenal again into the last 16 of the Champions League, because it's not an easy competition to tackle, and it's not a very easy competition to guarantee safe passage. Now, let's be honest, the group that Spurs were part of was not necessarily the very, very hard group. They had the likes of Bayer Leverkusen, they had the likes of Monaco, who were very, decent teams, but they're not quite the marquee teams of the Champions League, and they are showing that they are struggling against those sides. And you are right, it's the curse of the Wembley Stadium. It's the national stadium, and because it's a national stadium, it's a neutral stadium. What this means, Frankie B, means that you could be the away team, you could come to England, and it doesn't show the same passion, it doesn't show the same intimidation that White Hart Lane could have, for instance. So as far as everyone's concerned, it could be playing at home. Do you remember when Arsenal had the same situation during the transition? Yeah. They played in Wembley and they played absolutely terrible football because the national stadium doesn't necessarily breed that kind of home feeling, and the Spurs fan as well as the other fans, feel that the stadium belongs to everybody. So I'm not surprised that Spurs are struggling in that particular stadium, and I'm not particularly surprised that Spurs are hanging on the balance, and it looks to me that Spurs will end up where they should be, and that's playing, Thursday night football on Channel 5, in the UK. So that makes perfect sense, but it is looking very bleak for them. Very, very bleak.
Well, talking about things looking bleak, Terry, poor old Celtic, they still can't put some wins together. They drew 1-1 with Borussia Mönchengladbach. Is this a case of deja vu for Celtic?
I feel for Celtic. Like, if you think about it, Celtic are probably the second biggest club in Britain. By whatever dimension you choose to measure it, man. Celtic in the Premiership would be bigger than Arsenal in terms of attendance and in terms of away support. They're a massive, massive club. But when you're playing Motherwell and Partick Thistle, you can't get prepared for the Champions League. You're not playing at a level where you can then go straight into competition with even teams like Borussia Mönchengladbach. Let's be real. When the Rangers went down, Celtic basically had no real games in the season. They know they're going to win the league and they'll win it comfortably. There's no hunger in that team, So I feel for them. Something has to happen about those teams in Scotland, because if you look at, let's be realistic. You got Celtic and Rangers over in Scotland kicking their heels, doing nothing, and in the Premiership we've got teams like Burnley and West Bromwich Albion. There's something wrong about that. I'm sure we can just slot them in and say, look, you guys do this, get some of this money, and then let's see what you can do in the Champions League. I'd like to see Celtic with a bit of a budget and that home crowd behind them and what they could do in the Champions League, because they are a massive club. I just think they're in a really messed up situation.
Yeah, they are. In some ways, Rangers coming out of the top flight all those years back has kind of affected them more, don't you think?
Yes, it did two things. So first of all, it didn't give them an opponent, so they didn't really have anyone to play in the league. And then when they came back up, they weren't even a threat. So Rangers aren't even a threat.
So what you're saying, you're trying to say is AJ versus Molina?
Yes, it is. And the problem is that the Molina fans will tell you Molina's good, but your own eyes are telling you Molina's no good at all. And it is. What kind of preparation is a Molina fight to fight Vladimir Klitschko?
Do you know the funny thing is, I know we talked about the boxing already, but I'm serious. I think AJ can back a whole big plate of jollof rice and then fight Melina right before the match.
Yes, yeah, but you know he needs to stop getting knocked out in sparring. I'll say no more.
Right, on to Leicester. Leicester drew 0-0 with Copenhagen. Pascal, it's a very frustrating draw, but nevertheless, Leicester, they're kind of doing all right, don't you think?
Well, you know, the draws are part of football, you know. I mean, Leicester can't win them all, but one thing for sure is Leicester fails in the Champions League, you know, and they've won a few of their games, and they are proving to be potential contenders. And look, Leicester have more of a chance to go through than Spurs have. So, you know, I'm actually happy for Leicester. And, you know, a draw is a draw. It's not the end of the world. You know, they still get a point, and they've got an opportunity to salvage a result, you know, at the next opportunity. So credit to Leicester, and I fancy Leicester will go through, you know, but they may end up playing something quite difficult, you know, in the next round. I expect Leicester to be part of that last 16, you know. But listen, Ranieri has got the experience at that level. You know, the players, you know, not all of them are experienced at Champions League football, but they still have togetherness at Leicester, and Leicester are still trying to find their feet, and they seem to be playing better in Europe than they are playing in the domestic competition at the moment. So, and you know, it's really much when you're a team that's involved in so many competitions, it makes perfect sense that, you know, your drop of form, you know, domestically and sometimes at European level will show, you know, because you have a lot of commitments, there's a lot of traveling involved, a lot of preparation, and you know, and the players are not just concentrating on today's game, but they also got an eye on the game at the weekend, you know, whereas last season Leicester only had to think about one game a week, perhaps with the local cups, here and there, you know. So it's not the same for Leicester now. They're now a part of, dare I say, you know, the big club schedules where there's a lot of preparation needed on a weekly basis. So a draw, you know, in Europe is not a bad result overall. You know, it's better than not conceding any points, or not receiving any points rather.
Well, when you think of Leicester, you've got to say Okazaki. Let me hear you say that, Okazaki.
Okazaki.
There you go, brilliant. Now we're going to turn to the Gooners. We managed a 3-2 victory over Ludogorets, courtesy of a magnifique strike from Mesut Ozil. Terry, that goal was Tekker's, mate. Did you see that goal from Ozil?
That goal changed my night, really, you know. I walked into the gym, Arsenal were 2-0 down, and walked out the gym, it was 3-2, but I had to see the goal. And I had to see the goal just so I could settle an argument with a friend of mine, because he thinks Sanchez has been the player of the season so far. And I said to him, no. Ozil's the player of the season. He might be the player of the season in the whole Premiership, but definitely for Arsenal. Because if you go back 2 years, Ozil wasn't taking responsibility like this, where he's just, it's almost like he's decided to do, if you remember Fabregas's season before he went to Barcelona, where he just said, I'm gonna do what I want. And that's what Ozil's doing right now, which is bearing fruit, but it worries me because I think he's playing for a move away. I don't think he'll be there next season if we don't win something significant. That's what worries me at the moment.
Well, Pascal, what about your compatriot, Giroud? He started and he scored again.
Of course.
Giroud.
Well, you know, Olivier Giroud, you know, hate him or love him, you know, he tries his hardest to play for Arsenal. You know, when he's not under pressure, he tends to perform very well. But it seems to me that, you know, Olivier is now reaching towards the end of his Arsenal shelf life. You know, when at your 30th birthday, you know, at the Arsenal board tends to send a woman wearing in black at your door. You know, and that's when you start to wonder about your opportunities at the club. And Olivier probably knows that Arsenal are on the way up, and there's an opportunity for him to stay on, and he's fighting for his place. You know, he seems to be a man that is hungry. He seems like he's discovering his intention to score goals. And let's face it, other players around him are actually performing quite well. Walcott is scoring goals, Ozil is scoring goals, and Sanchez is also scoring goals. So it's important for Giroud to also show that, listen, I want to be part of this conversation. There's an opportunity potentially for Giroud to maybe even be sold in January, and he doesn't want to be that guy, He wants to stick around and he wants to stay on, particularly if Ozil, who continues to, I believe Ozil reached 200 assists on the game on Tuesday, which makes his assist record incredible, but also the way he took the goal with so much composure. I agree with Terry. I'm very concerned that Real Madrid may well decide to come back, and reimburse Arsenal with the 42 million that we paid for him originally, and he also wants to be, nominated for Ballon d'Or and all sorts of things. Ozil is a very, very good player, and despite the balance that Arsenal are now finding in their squad, I still believe that what would be absolutely amazing for Arsenal is, listen to this, Frankie B and Terry, is the way that Aguero is being played around with at Manchester City. If there's somehow Arsene Wenger could pull an audacious move and buy Aguero in the next summer transfer window and keep Ozil, there's an opportunity for them to challenge for just the Champions League, not just the Premiership, because a man like Aguero in front of, the Emirates Stadium with Ozil and Sanchez and all these very good players would be absolutely dynamite, and you sell Giroud to Atletico Madrid and bring in the likes of Aguero, there's a possibility that that could potentially happen, because Aguero has not been playing consistently for Manchester City. I would love Aguero at the Emirates Stadium, but it all depends on whether Ozil can stay with Arsenal as well, and that's the big concern. A lot of big clubs could potentially come from Ozil. Paris Saint-Germain, for instance, Real Madrid, Barcelona, or even Bayern Munich could also buy him.
Bayern München. Okay, well, we're against time, guys. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about the North London derby. Big game. Bragging rights are on the line. Terry, Harry Kane is likely to be back. Is it going to be a factor towards Spurs possibly getting the 3 points at the Emirates?
Never happened, man. Let's be serious for a second. Tottenham can't come to the Emirates and expect to win anything. There are rules to this, right? There are rules to this. The big brother dominates, the younger brother knows his place. I'm not entertaining anything, man. I can't even have a reasonable discussion about anything Tottenham. Saturday, what Ozil did to Ludogorets, Spurs are getting twice. It's happening. Let's accept it. It's happening. Harry Kane this, Harry Kane that. The only thing I'll say is, the way to beat Tottenham now under Pochettino, I actually think, is to press aggressively for 20 minutes. They don't start very well. If Arsenal can be 1 or 2-0 up after 20 minutes, we will put the hiding on that Tottenham team. But we have to press early and press aggressively. And I swear, if Wenger tries to start Giroud in that game, we're having a pep talk at the line.
I'm telling you, we're going to do a podcast straight away. I'm just going to call you and say, look, turn off the TV, let's do this podcast.
Damn right. But let's study Arsenal history. We've always been at our best when we've had a mobile striker. Whether the striker's fast or not is irrelevant. He has to be mobile. Giroud is the second least mobile striker I have seen this year after that Janssen guy at Tottenham. That guy's Squawker heat map is embarrassing. He does not move for anyone. And Giroud has that problem as well, where he doesn't move, and he's got that same thing. I'm Olivier Giroud. I'm going to run to the...
But did you see Giroud in the European Championships when they did that through ball and he was through and goal, and he had yards of space and no one was next to him, and the defender just caught up with him.
The defender was probably running backwards as well. Just I'll be there in a second. Yeah, keep running. I want to make this look good for the camera. You run around Giroud twice before you tackle him. You can do anything. The guy is slow. He slows Arsenal's play down. That's the problem. So the ball gets up to Giroud, the game slows down. So I'd like us to start with, I don't know how fit Walcott is, probably not very fit, but I'd start personally up top, Sanchez in the middle. I'd have Iwobi on the left because I like what he brings to the table. If there's no Walcott, then just stick Ramsey on there for some pressing and some industry. Mm-hmm. And let's really go after Spurs from the start.
Pascal.
Oui.
Now, Spurs, they're still unbeaten in the Premiership. And usually at the Emirates, they do quite well against Arsenal. Last season, they were very, very, very on top. And they were very, very difficult for Arsenal to beat. How do you see this contest? Is it likely to be a draw?
Frankly, my opinion of the game is that I don't think that Spurs will be winning at Arsenal. I think it'll either be a draw or Arsenal will actually win the game. You know, obviously Spurs will be pumped up for it. But, you know, they haven't quite get their strikers don't seem to be, you know, performing really well. You know, Son began the season quite well. Harry Kane obviously has been injured, and then Jensen still finding his feet in the Premier League. So, you know, they still don't have this world-class striker that can cause us some problems. So I expect the goals to come perhaps from the midfield or from the attacking players. But notably, you know, I agree with Terry. Arsenal would want to be the first team to take away their as we say in boxing, you know, their winning streak. You know, they would want to be the first team to beat them. And so I expect Arsenal to come quite aggressive, to come off the blocks. You know, if you remember the way that Arsenal played Manchester United last season, you know, where they came out the blocks, it was like 100 meters final. You know, there was a red Ferrari from the moment the whistle blew. And if Arsenal played that way, I expect an early goal, you know, a bit of shock and awe. And the problem is you don't want to give Spurs the opportunity to pass the ball around, because, you know, Spurs are also quite an industrious team. You know, they're very good at pressing. They're also very good at you know, up until the very, very end, you know, they will always, you know, do the very best to press and to score goals. So the importance for us is to contain them, you know, and to pass the ball around as much as possible, and to attack them and to put them on the back foot. They have a very good defense, you know, they've conceded very little goals. So on the balance of that, you know, I expect Spurs to give us a very good contest, but I don't expect Spurs to outscore Arsenal on Sunday. So it's going to be a very interesting matchup, and I certainly expect Arsenal to win or to draw the game at the very least.
Quick score prediction, Pascal.
For me, the game will be notably, you know, Spurs always score at the Emirates Stadium, so I can see it going 2-1 or 3-2.
Terry?
3-1 to Arsenal.
3-1. There you have it. I'm going to say it's going to be a 1-0 victory to Arsenal, courtesy of Giroud. Now that's our time, guys. I'd like to thank Terry. I'd like to thank Pascal. Join us again next week for another Pep Talk UK podcast. Thank you.
Pep Talk UK.
Please follow us on social media. On Twitter, it's at Pep Talk _UK. And Instagram, it's Pep Talk _UK.